Hello, hello, hello. This is Out of the Mud Media Incorporated, and this is Connected and Protected. And your host today is Dehru Mitchell, and the title of this show is Coming Out of Confusion. And here we go with Mr. Dehru Mitchell.
Good evening, world. I just wanted to start with at an early age, I didn't quite understand anything because my course was set in trying to get an education. Then I found out I wasn't getting educated. To this day, I felt as though miseducation was more like the fact. I learned to do a few things on my own, which were passed down from lip to ear through, my parents, foster parents, and then coming out of high school, took a GED, then found out most of the education that I got wouldn't amount to anything. I did a lot of my own personal study in the library, and then I got to the point where none of anything made much sense because I didn't quite get that I was supposed to live in the systems of this country. And when I found out what the systems were, they didn't make much sense either because you could only do what you were allowed to do, not what you truly had the capability or propensity to do. So, to a large degree, I found myself really searching for myself and the ability to be acknowledged for what I didn't quite understand. Because for me, adulthood or coming to be an adult meant I would have to take care of myself and meet my own responsibilities, which I knew very little of either because I had no true family structure. And coming to find out that it was that way by design for the most part, I found myself kind of listfully wandering around in this world, hoping to get some understanding of where I was to get a firm hold on some structure in life and begin to see myself forming a basis for a sustainable life that was going to be prosperous and, adventurous to say the least, but at the most part, structured and stable. Didn't quite happen that way. Out of high school, I couldn't join the army. Physical problems, functional heart murmur. uh, from that point, couldn't get in the shop because I was in the streets and no place to rest or sleep. And I felt like, I wasn't given much of a chance to acquire a point of stability. From that, I would say I started searching for some real understanding as to how this society was stacked upon itself and why people didn't quite mesh with my understanding of how people should be. I found myself trying out a few different of the paradigms of the age from 73 to like 85. And I went through a few of the categories that people were putting themselves in at the time, mainly through imitating the arts, singing, the movies, really wanting to be proficient at something, but quite not quite knowing how to be. I could imitate, and I did a pretty good job at that. But being myself didn't allow me to continue in any of those areas because I found myself wondering how everything had to be on the basis of someone else being belittled or subjugated to being less of themselves than I felt I wanted to be of myself. And that's what I basically call using. So I just wistfully went through that until about the age of 25 or so. Then I got serious about why is the society this way, where people have to prey on each other just to make it of some degree livable, some life for themselves at the behest of someone else's debilitation. And I found out it was that way from the top to the bottom. And we, or me, found myself basically on the bottom. Didn't want to get bought out, didn't want to sell out, and didn't want to think that I was going to use somebody else to the extent that, I didn't feel that they were worth anything after being used. To me, I finally got a hold on something called the Illuminati, the hierarchical structures of society that, you know, basically wanted everything for themselves and didn't care how they got it, to the point that there was a workforce and people that received all of the profit from the work. It wasn't until I went to junior college, Mott to be exact, took a civics class that I found out that melanated people as a people were considered chattel property at one time, and that threw me for a loop. Matter of fact, I quit, and it took me a little time to recover from that, even though I didn't quite figure out in the first place when I was about, I guess, 8 or 9 years old, that why was Martin Luther King killed, John F. Kennedy, and the rest of them, when they seemed to have the best interests of the masses of people at heart. And, I couldn't understand a force coming against them that would rather annihilate them than allow us people to, ascend or have a life that wasn't based on toil and subjugation, oppression, and all the rest of that stuff. I found out about, you know, and then I actually, I guess, came to understand that we were basically what you call catastrophes. What is that word? Um, when you're collateral damage. Yeah, that's it. We were collateral damage. Not that it wasn't expected, but it was geared to be that way from the point that Henry Ford said, "I want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers," and he set the categories that people could elevate themselves to, and to the amount of people that could do so, and they were, fractured from that point on. We were taught to we were given a place to think on our own, and it was called daydreaming. Other than that, we were told what to think, and then when to think was something else. We were conditioned with bells and hours. We were under instructors, and we were being trained to the extent that we didn't even understand that part. We thought we were getting an education. I kind of left off from there and went into the world to uh, try to do things that I could get some immediate instructions in and see what happened from there. The most confusing part came to me when none of it fit my spirit, and I found that, like I said, I was on the bottom. So what could I put underneath me when I was underneath everything else? Didn't quite fit for me. So I wandered off into various other things and found myself basically on the wanting end of everyone that thought they could see some potential in me, and very few that I tried to feel. Very few of those potentials did I try to feel. I kind of got lost in not wanting to give up what I considered myself to something of someone else's or for someone else. So now I'm at the point where I've come to understand that in a point of direction, you set your own course for what you decide you want in life. And there's nothing you can't have. But to be aware of all the obstacles and those points of resistance for you to reach a level optimal to those who consider themselves in control is not to be had. So say this society. But you get, I guess you can get you can catch sight of those things that give you hope in the point to the point that you were given that to look at as your opportunity. I mean, there are people in this world that have made it from the bottom to the top. I don't think they made it all the time by peeling themselves up by the bootstraps. And today, you can see that most are paid to be put in a position to make you feel as though you can reach that same position. They make it a dream. They make it a dream in this country called the American dream. But the success of it is very seldom kept for people who have been, I say, put in a position of not being wanted to be anybody. Therefore, uh, you know, you get the glory and the honor and the privilege to look as though you made it until they get ready to pull the rug out from under you. And then there you go. And they'll use anything to defame you. So basically, that much of the confusion was removed from me. Then it became, who is it that's truly in power and what do they truly control? And I felt as though it was a useless point to actually know it, not be able to do anything about it, because it's so structured in this society with its systems and its rulership. There's very little that one can do, even with the masses being herded in one direction, because it's not usually to an ascended level where they're going to prosper. and meant to be confused in a state of delusion and kept at the point of making it mostly from one day to the next. I've seen that you can work all your life in this life, and then after that, you still have nothing to look forward to. You have nothing to hold on to, and you can't take it with you. The confusing part is why, when life is supposed to be able to be fulfilled. I've never set my standards so low as to find myself being fulfilled with less than peace of heart and mind, and the accomplishment of having more than not the love of everyone that I've encountered. And that is the true sense of wealth that I found. And it's not very confusing at all. It's a separate, this is totally separate from what is usually held to be wealth in this world. But I would rather have that throughout my life, seeing as how I've always had some people in my life, and hopefully they felt that I was in theirs enough to have made a difference in a positive manner, even though it may take a long look to see it. And with that, I'm pretty much undirected as to whatever else I'm going to deal with, because it's not very confusing to know how things were turned around backwards, upside down, and put right back in your face as though you're not it. So I basically want to end this conversation on that note. And in the future, I would love to be talking about the people of the land, the organic people of this land, getting this land back and having their own government, which would be of us, for us, by us. I would also love to be talking about removing the uh, removing the traumas, the the way we've been indoctrinated into believing that we cannot take care of ourselves, we can't do for ourselves, and we can't be ourselves in a society as a society of ourselves.
Still breaking, divide, and conquer spirit.
Oh yeah, that'll be breaking the divide and conquering spirit and reaching oneness.
Name some people that you like, the empress and stuff like
Oh yes, I am in line with, you know, the Cherokee Nation reaching its full potential, reaching the um, regaining ownership of the land and setting society in order along those lines, seeing as how we have been gifted with um, the Cherokee Nation as a leading, the Empress Chakra Rarebird being given the allodial position over the land and the clans of the original Turtle Island and its organic people. And that will be one that I truly would love to see come into fruition and be asserting myself and assisting it to be so.
that. And you're planning on trying to interview the empress,
Oh, that would be yes, and I plan on trying to in, interview with the princess and the Empress, and a few others who are in the major, such as Rod Hayes, maybe Chief Pontiac, uh, Young Elder, and I would even love to have a interview with Professor. Oh, I can't call his name right this minute, but we'll get to him. Um, and that'll be in the future. In our next, okay, we're working on getting those people in, and when we do, it's bound to be definitely coming up out the mud. And with that, it's a good night. Signing off.